I know that when we were pitched a Rick and Morty or Adventure Time, or a regular show, it's just first thing I look for is the creative team's excitement. At the end of the day, I look for the enthusiasm and the excitement from the creative team. Are they like lit up on this idea? Next, do I believe that it has sustainability? Anybody can come with a great idea. I've had a lot of meetings about shows, and it's like, oh, great idea. What I, in the past, have always looked for is where's it going to be season two? Because to me, the measure of success of terms of show, you all want a success out of year one, but is it sustainable?
This is the Media Machine, where media, business, and innovation intersect. Hi, I'm Johanna Salazar, and I'll be your host as we examine the future of content, technology, and entertainment through the lens of four key pillars: process, profit, people, and planet. Stuart Snyder is a veteran media executive, producer, and creative strategist whose career has shaped some of the most iconic brands in entertainment. As a former president and COO of Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, and Boomerang, Stuart led the teams behind breakout hits like Adventure Time, Rick and Morty, and Steven Universe, earning 26 Emmy Awards and scaling the division to over $1 billion in revenue. His influence spans television, film, live events, and Broadway, with credits ranging from Reservoir Dogs and Terminator 2 to Ringling Brothers, Disney on Ice, and most recently, the Tony-nominated productions of Suffs, Hell's Kitchen, and Water for Elephants. Today, he runs Snyder Media Group and advises media companies and startups on strategy, storytelling, and scale, all while co-owning one of Maine's most beloved restaurants, Beal's Lobster Pier. Hi, Stuart. Welcome to the Media Machine.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
So you've worn a lot of hats, Cartoon Network, WWE, Broadway, and now the restaurant. How do you approach building across such different worlds?
I would love to be able to say that everything was planned. A lot of things in my career I like to think were planned, but also things that just happen. But there is one common thread that I think about on my career, is that the entrepreneurial nature of it, or the entrepreneurial spirit. That started at a really, young age, where working in my father's music store, kind of got the bug of learning business, and then took that and ran with it to do concert promotion when I was in college, running mini businesses there. And I tried to keep that spirit, or keep that way of thinking throughout my career, whether it was a corporate job. You can't get more corporate than running Cartoon Network and Adult Swim in $1 billion division. We were a public company within a public company. However, I still always thought of it as entrepreneurial, risk-taking. How do we push the envelope, not just take things for granted? And that just was my way of thinking in every single element of my career. I like taking what I'd like to say calculated risks. So even when I was at Turner Broadcasting, my first go around in running their home entertainment division, and in the film and television world, where we bought New Line Cinema, Castle Rock Entertainment, Hanna-Barbera, launched cable networks. When Ted sold the company, it's like, okay, what do I do next? What's the next thing that'll get me excited? I took that jump and risk to go to Feld Entertainment and run Ringling Brothers and Disney on Ice. And at the time, we had a Las Vegas show. So it's more of that risk taking. That's that thread, and entrepreneurial nature that I kind of approach everything that, at least I try to, everything that I do.
It sounds like you follow your heart. You obviously take some strategic, calculated risk. Like, I was listening to some of the stuff that you were saying. For example, like when your partner reached out to you and said, "Hey, we're going to buy this restaurant," and you're like, "No, thanks."
Yes. Yeah. It was a little bit more colorful. He called me up. I was sitting in my office at Turner, and running this billion-dollar division, and got that phone call and said, you know, that we're going to go buy Beal's Lobster Pier. And this was at the time an 80-year iconic lobster business up in Maine. Now, I visited Beal's and this part of it's called Mount Desert Island in Maine for 40 plus years. I said, what the blank are you talking about? And the third generation of the family, put it up for sale. They were done. And he said, look, I don't know if it was a bottle of tequila or vodka or what, but we ended up buying it. And it was all about saving it, number one, and two, implementing a business plan for growth. But that goes back to a core element for me in terms of my background, which is about building brands and taking what I call core business principles. And it doesn't matter what the business is, but there are core principles, and you apply them. And that's what we did here. We applied them to a lobster pier business,
What are the
somewhere along the line of my career, I came up with this: look, listen, learn, and probe. So here, we're buying a new business. I didn't come from the restaurant business. You're stepping into a new world. You look a lot. You look around. You observe. You listen a lot. You learn. Look, listen, learn. And then you probe. Then you ask questions. That's the best way, at least my experience is to extract information from the people who are doing and working really hard in a business. And then you look for those opportunities on how you can add value. So that's what I applied here. And I applied that same principle to every single business or company that I went to work for. And the other thing is very much something that's out there already, which is the 4 Ps. I call them, people, product, process, and pricing. I add the pricing part, which is really about the margins, making sure your margins are right. But it is about product, people, and process, most importantly.
It's so funny because I have my 4 pillars.
Yeah.
Profit, people, planet, process.
Everybody has them, right? Or you should. If I'm advising startups or I'm advising people that are trying to scale their business, it's really, first of all, what's your value system? Where do you come from a place of how you want to run your business, or because some people will put, I hate to say it, some people put profit first instead of people. And I come from a world of, no, let's get this right. This is about people and process. If you get those things right, kind of the rest should follow. If you're putting your heart and soul into a business, into your product. So that's what we applied here.
I do want to talk a little bit about creative instinct, because you said that a hit starts with a feeling. Yeah. How do you spot potential? Because you've done some incredible work that's lived on beyond you. Like, for example, Rick and Morty, it's done its 8th season. Yeah. It became a movement. Talk to us about that. How do you spot a movement?
There's a phrase that I always have, which is, we don't know anything. It's nice to say we think we know, but at the end of the day, we have the best all we have is our instincts and our gut feeling. I know that when we were pitched a Rick and Morty or Adventure Time, or a regular show, it's just, first thing I look for is the creative team's excitement. At the end of the day, I look for the enthusiasm and the excitement from the creative team. Are they lit up on this idea? Next, do I believe that it has sustainability? Anybody can come with a great idea. I've had a lot of meetings about shows, and it's like, oh, great idea. What I, in the past, have always looked for is, where's it going to be season 2? Because to me, the measure of success in terms of show, you all want a success of year 1, but is it sustainable? Does the creative talent or the creative team have a vision of where it's going with the threads and the characters? Okay. How do I think it's going to resonate with an audience? So that to me is all very important when it comes to television shows. On the
Mm-hmm.
movie side, just to share with you on the movie side, I've been very fortunate to be involved in hit movies, things that were destined to be hits. Terminator 2 is as a slam dunk. James Cameron, that nobody needed my opinion on whether or not that would be a hit or not. We all hoped that it would be. But one of the things that I point back in my career is an experience I had with a movie called Cinema Paradiso. If you haven't seen the movie, I recommend it to everybody. Um, but I remember sitting in a screening room. I was watching this film alone, and I was going to be asked when the movie was over, do you recommend we buy it or not? And I sat in that room, and at the end of that movie, I was crying my eyes out, and I grabbed the phone in the screening room and said, we have to get this movie. And that was
Wow.
just a gut instinct of an emotional feeling to creative content. And at the end of the day, we didn't get the film, but the film was a huge hit and success. So it really just comes down to a gut feeling at the end of the day, and you hope you're right more than not.
Mm-hmm. So that's always very interesting. I always think about that, like as a president of a network, as the
Mm-hmm.
person at the very top, obviously you have to make really tough
Yeah,
decisions, and you really hope that you can scale. And in your case, you had to scale globally, right?
correct.
You kind of had that pressure. How did you scale your businesses to over $1 billion in revenue?
There's a couple of things to think about in terms of that. First of all, we were fortunate in the day that we were operating, and it's a very different world today. I mean, I was living in an ecosystem of the cable industry. So the cable industry, back for my 10 years of Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, and my brands, our revenue stream was really cable subscribers. So we were living in a world of 100 million households having cable. That world doesn't exist anymore. So that 100 million is now down to about 50, 60 million households. So first of all, the economics have changed on that front. I was living in a thriving advertising world.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got successful shows and eyeballs, people watching your networks, our advertising revenue is up. So that's the second part of the tier of what I call the revenue stream. Next is having hit shows generating licensing and merchandising revenue. So on the scale of whether it's Adventure Time or Ben 10 or Steven Universe or regular show, even in Rick and Morty on the Adult Swim side, all of those had, whether you call it T-shirts, action figures, bed sheets, what I call licensing and merchandising. So we were able to scale on a revenue standpoint, again, $1 billion, and that was just from the U.S. standpoint. We were responsible, again, we're creating content for, as you said, globally. So we also had to make sure that our shows could travel across the country, and also we were across the world, and looking for shows that were working elsewhere that we could bring to the US. It's never easy sitting in that chair. It's a tough job, I will say that. But the thing about the content business is it's really an at bat business. And what I mean by that is baseball terms.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball player is successful if they have 3 hits out of 10 because they're batting 300. That's phenomenal for a baseball player. In our business, in the television business, if we were batting 2 hits out of 10, that's great. So,
Mm.
because the 2 hits pay for the other 8 that may not have been as successful. So, we just had to make sure we were putting out content and enough content to find that hit that really resonated on a global basis.
And that was then. Is it still the same, or do you?
Oh, it's even more pressure today. I look back on it and I'm fortunate that I was in that chair during that time. It's got to be so much more difficult being in that chair today because, as I said, the eyeballs are less.
Mm-hmm.
Advertising revenue is less. The
Mm-hmm.
economics to make shows are not there. I mean, I look at Cartoon Network today and Cartoon Network or any of the kids' cable networks. Kids aren't watching cable television.
Mm-mm.
They're not. They're watching YouTube. It's a sad thing for me to say, but I don't know that many people that watch commercial television today.
Mm-hmm.
They're watching Netflix. They're watching their streaming services. That's
Yeah.
where the audience has gone, and a lot of people watch them commercial free. So the whole system is completely different. But having said that, the one thing I will say is the game is still the same to find hit shows. It's still the same. It's finding shows that resonate. And by the way, just to give you one quick example, which I think is an amazing phenomenon, is is a television show that aired years ago called Suits on
Mm-hmm.
USA, and it aired on USA, and it was a moderate hit on USA Network when USA, when in the cable industry. That show got completely rediscovered by an audience on Netflix. It's a show that's been hasn't been around for 10 years, but just to show you good content ultimately can still get discovered.
Yeah. What would your life look like right now if you were a network president?
uh, boy, um, the pressures the pressures was always there to have
Mm-hmm.
hits, of course. I think it's even worse today. Because you're most of the networks are still in public companies. So as a
Mm-hmm.
public company, you have certain obligations. You got to deliver results every quarter. You have to have ratings. But in a universe that you're losing eyeballs, it's kind of like, how do you get shows made? It's very tricky. I wouldn't even imagine what that gig could be like today. It's a tough job, even tougher today than ever before.
I want to kind of stay in there
Yeah.
for a little longer, but I don't know how comfortable you feel about talking about like whether you stay in touch with these folks today and what are those conversations
The
like?
only thing I can tell you is, look, the business in general, the media space, um, if you look around, there's a couple of themes. One, more consolidation than ever before. Okay, companies are merging. Um, who would have thought 10 years ago that Disney and Fox are one company? Who would have thought that um, the day that I was at where I was, Time Warner, the company has been sold twice since I've been with the company. First to AT&T, and now it's Warner Brothers Discovery. So those transactions have taken place. The nature of the economics of the business has caused tremendous consolidation and layoffs in the industry. That's a known
Hmm.
fact. That's out there, um, and that's because of streaming economics, loss of subscribers to cable. The movie business, the pandemic on the movie side has changed the movie business I think, for a very long time in terms of how movies get made and also distributed. Um,
Hmm.
so I think just the entire business, the ecosystem is adjusting, is right sizing to the world we're living in today, which is a very different space than 5 years ago, and even more than 10 years ago. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the reality of what the industry is. Someone called me up and said, I'm thinking of going into the entertainment business. And I said to the person, in what capacity? In what? Because those opportunities, not that I'm discouraging anybody from going into the entertainment business, but it's really being clear in terms of what's the space you're going into that you want to go into. Creative side, the business side, and knowing how to zigzag in because it is a smaller business than it once was.
So where do you see it going?
This is where I get out of the crystal ball business. Because the minute someone says, I know where it's going, they don't. Um, I mean, but I think that there are certain trends. I think that there are certainly, um, from a kid's perspective, direct to consumer is more and more of a focus, whether that's YouTube um, focused or whether it's an ad supported platform, but it's much more in that direction. I think streaming is really taking a hold on folks. I think that people are watching less ads and are doing that. Certainly, there's a space for ad-supported platforms, um, and they have their audience. But clearly, I think more and more, if you look at terms of watching what I call regular cable networks, that's going to continue to decrease over time. Somewhere it's going to hit a floor. Some people say 50, 60 million is the floor. I'm not sure I agree with that. That's just one person's opinion. I think that we are seeing a moment for sports. Sports is driving live television, and we're seeing more sports documentaries, and we're seeing sports scripted shows. So I think sports is kind of having a moment, and we're certainly seeing it from evaluation of sports teams. So that's a phenomenon that I see continuing with the trend as well.
Where are you getting into?
I am very focused on my own little world, which is trying to help companies who need some help. Sports is, look, sports for me, sure, if someone wants to come along and say, be part of a buying group of a team and so forth, I'd certainly listen. But valuations are really gotten out of control right now. I'll tell you what I'm planning and looking at and involved in a few things in sports. One main thing is that I'm having conversations with a group about sumo wrestling, professionalized sumo wrestling. I see it as an opportunity in terms of the sport's been around forever. Everybody knows what sumo wrestling is and means. But looking at taking that from a standpoint of professionalizing it with a tour, with a television show, and so forth. So that's a space that I am looking at, and I'm helping a team kind of raise capital and then launch that concept. And the other part of it is I like the space of MMA for armored combat. It's a niche thing out there of men and women who wear armor and they get in a ring and they fight. I was involved in a series called Night Fight several years ago, which aired on the History Channel, and it it's popular in its own space, but that has an opportunity to grow as well. So those are the really the only two sports areas that I'm venturing into.
I want to learn about content acquisition strategy. Like how did you negotiate some of the awesome like IP that everybody knows, like Star Wars, the
Yeah.
Clone Wars, and How to Train Your Dragon? How did you negotiate those deals?
So an interesting story on Star Wars, the Clone Wars. So I had just pretty much I was new to in the chair at Cartoon Network, and and candidly, when I joined, you know, that division, I was already running a digital gaming division. When I came on board in Cartoon Network, I knew what the assignment was, and the assignment was very clearly to improve the ratings and the relevancy of Cartoon Network. We were out of a horse race of three, we were in fourth place. So I know we needed content, and I needed to find content fairly quickly. So we did a bunch of things internally. But one of the things I knew was kind of hanging out there was I knew George Lucas was producing a new series, Clone Wars. And I asked a few of our folks internally, and I said, so, where are we with Clone Wars? Do we have a shot? Do we have this? And I heard a lot of kind of mixed signals back in that, oh, we did shorts and they didn't like the shorts we did way back when. And we're not bidding on the series. We're not engaged in the series. And I went, okay. I said, great. And frankly, I cold called Lucas. Uh, Hi, I'm new. I am new. And ultimately got an audience and made the pitch. And frankly, when I made the pitch on that is that our network would give more love and more attention to the Clone Wars because we were in the crapper. And we were down here. It helped that we had a checkbook in acquiring it, but we also, more importantly, forget about the checkbook. We had a strategy and how to market and distribute it. And this goes back to something I said earlier, which is about passion. The idea that if you want something bad enough, you're going to pick up, again, it sounds crazy today, pick up the phone. But, today it would be send a text. But, I picked up the phone. I hounded them. I got on a plane, and this was the president and COO. It wasn't left to someone else in the organization. And thankfully, we did land it, and it was great for the network. It kind of put us on the map. It was one of the pieces that got us over the hump into our next generation. George and the company was fantastic to work with, fantastic partners. The show looked great, built-in fan audience. That one was the good one. That was one of the successes. Uh, Also, How to Train Your Dragon. I saw the movie and then heard that Jeffrey and DreamWorks was making the series, wanted to make the series. That was also again leaning in to say, yeah, we want that series. That great, compelling story, and we struck a deal for that show on a global basis. And between the two of them, I got questioned a lot. I'll just give you some background. Those were expensive acquisitions. I got asked, over the years, would I do it again? I do it. I do both of those in a second again because they fit our brand. They were with creative talent that we greatly respected. They had audiences, and I knew that we knew how to promote them. There's no secret sauce to it. It's just the same kind of instinct that you put into producing your own content. Will it work? Do you think it'll work? Do you think it's right for your audience? And that's how we approach acquisitions.
What about the wrestling acquisition that you guys did?
Ah, yeah, you
That
go.
I feel like
Yeah,
that's
that was
another cult
yeah,
movement.
that one. That is one acquisition that I am very proud of. Um, so I had the good fortune of being at Turner Broadcasting uh, when we were building WCW.
Hmm.
Okay, the brand, and Ted was definitely wanted to be competitive in the wrestling business, or as he called it, wrestling business, and he did. I mean, he committed resources, the talent, the storyline that they did there. Now, I was only there as a little bit of an overlap, and they continued on with success for a couple more years with WCW, and they were kicking WW at that time. They were called WWF's butt, um, and and then they weren't, and then it kind of the turn tie the tide turned. By that time, I had joined WWE.
Hmm.
I was president chief operating officer, and I was watching what was happening to WCW over
Hmm.
in the camp over at Turner, and we at WWE, in addition to the core business, we're looking for opportunities to go. How do we expand our universe? And
Hmm.
one of the things I thought of was, well, WCW is struggling, and I put in a call to them, to Turner. I knew a few people over there. So I called them and I just said, look, if there's ever a time that you guys want to get out of that business, we would love to talk to you. And then over a course of a bunch of months, and that was an up and down journey because they had another buyer. There was a part of the story is we tried to buy it, then we couldn't, and so forth. And it was more time than this than this podcast. But ultimately, I was very proud that we did acquire it. And I've been asked in terms of why to acquire it because we were very successful at WWE. Did we really need WCW? Um, the reason that I thought it was strategic for us was they were at that time our number one competitor and still a
Hmm.
good relevant brand that we could build upon. They had
Hmm.
a lot of great contracts with talent that we could absorb if we wanted into WWE Universe. And most importantly, uh, what I really liked about the idea is that they had, and the whole venture was about their digital library. If you
Hmm.
look at the time period, you could see digital was just taking more and more hold People were watching things online, and they had a library of content that would have more increasing value over time. So
Hmm.
we got that library as well. So for all those reasons, from an acquisition standpoint, made perfect sense. We were the perfect buyer, and we struck the right deal and acquired it. And I was fortunate that I led that charge and was able to bring it across the finish line.
Just out of curiosity, because I did work at Viacom,
Yeah,
um, they were the ones getting in the way.
yeah, they were. Yes, good observation. Yeah, just for
They were
just for
trying to block you from every angle.
just for those listening or watching, um, the story is absolutely true. What ended up happening is at the time, our contract was with Viacom. Our show was airing on what was known as the national network, which,
Hmm.
if you remember, TNN, um, and also on UPN. So we had
Mm.
Raw and
Oh.
SmackDown. So we were on both of those. And we made our deal with Turner to buy WCW. And frankly, we thought that it was done, easy. We're going to be doing more programming. Who
Hmm.
doesn't want more programming from WWF at the time, right? Who doesn't want more programming? Viacom's going to love this idea. Um, and we then placed that phone call, and we didn't get the reaction that was expected.
Eesh.
And they said, no, we're good. We're good. And that is what blocked the first acquisition, opened up the door for someone else to go in there. They couldn't close that deal. We came back in, and at that point we just said, we're not going to worry about getting it on air with more hours, which was the
Hmm.
initial strategy, more content, more hours, right? We're just going to be satisfied buying the brand, contracts, digital library, and we'll figure out what to do with it over time. So yes, but yes, you are accurate, and it's a very real statement.
I want to move into the live experiences. So
Yeah,
that was a big part of your career as well. So you produced over 1,000 live shows, including Ringling Brothers,
our
Disney
company, yes,
on Ice,
company did,
yeah,
yes,
and Clifford.
yeah,
So how do you see live entertainment evolving, or what does it look like today? Where do
yep.
you see it going? And what was that experience
I
like?
think that at the end of the day, what I love about live entertainment is that instant reaction with an audience. Okay, that thrill, that walking. I have such amazing experience of walking around an arena and seeing kids smiling and families happy and people cheering. Whether it's a Ringling show or it was Disney on Ice, it's that feeling of you're getting that instant gratification or crickets. You're kind of sensing what's working and what's not working. So to me, that's an amazing rush. You don't get that from a lot of media places. You do get it with an audience, with a live audience. And the same is
Mhm.
on Broadway, by the way. It's the same type of rush. Um, so that's what I love about live entertainment. The thing about where I see live entertainment going future, it's never going away. Okay, I know people were talking a few years ago about the pandemic. People weren't going to be comfortable sitting next to each other. BS. Live entertainment is going to be around. People want to get out of their homes. People want to have shared experiences. And there's so many different types of live entertainment. It doesn't have to be just a sporting event. It doesn't have to be, it can be dinner theater. It can be, you know, um, these are experiences of walking through exhibits. That's live entertainment. These are all parts of live entertainment. The big hot phenomenon right now is immersive.
Mhm.
Okay, going in, the examples of the Van Gogh exhibit that toured the country. Area 15 in Las Vegas
Mhm.
has a friend of mine movie right now called The Rolling Stone Presents Amplified, which is about rock and roll music, and it's immersive. You stand or sit in a big room, and it's sound and visuals and the flooring lighting and everything. Those are very, very popular now. So it's about picking the right ones as best you can, where you think there's an audience, because they're
Mhm.
expensive to put together and they're high
Mhm.
risk, just like Broadway. You don't
Mhm.
know what the end result will be, but I'm a very big fan of this format continuing, especially as the media business changes and continues to morph. I think live entertainment is is a great avenue and will be.
Yeah. So speaking of Broadway, you've definitely worked on a bunch of shows, Suffs, Hell's
Yeah,
Kitchen, Water for Elephants, and even a play, The Exorcist.
yeah, I did that. Yeah.
What drew you to Broadway?
So it really, again, it just goes back live entertainment. I'm going to use that as the anchor. Um, when I was approached about The Exorcist, doing that show, and that was pre-pandemic, we co-produced it with partners in the UK, had a great run in the UK on it, and then was getting ready to bring it to New York, and then the pandemic happened. And that was kind of my first in terms of a theatrical production. Didn't do anything, frankly, until I got into it about a year and a half ago. Uh, and I had lots of opportunities. Um, I won't mention the shows that I passed on, but for me, it was a matter of going into the things that, again, my gut feeling resonated with, and my gut resonated with Water for Elephants. That was the first one of the three that I was involved in. First of all, producing team was I liked the producing team. I liked that it was a best-selling book. It was a movie, had a lot of core things, music. Suffs was just the women's suffrage movement, and the talent, creative talent that did that show. It came out of the New York Public Theater, so it had a great successful run there, and it was going to Broadway. And the last one, Hell's Kitchen, was just again Alicia Keys and music and her story, even though she says it's loosely based on her story, but enough there. Um, I just felt those are three projects that I leaned into and I felt really passionate about. Um, and and the good thing is they had good runs and they're touring now in the fall, all of them. So, but you never know because that business, I got to tell you something. If you talk about high risk, Broadway is high risk. So you just never know. But I like the space, and again, there's no better feeling than going into a theater or a place and listening to really amazing creative talents in a song, and people are like resonating and to it. So I just love that area. I'm looking at a few shows now. I don't know if I'll jump in, but I'll see what happens. The future we'll see.
Well, you're saying that you're looking into some stuff right now as a board
I
member.
am.
As a board member and investor, what are some of the trends that you're looking out for that are getting you very excited?
Well, this is where I try to avoid trends. Honestly, what resonates for me is at the end of the day, who's the creative team? Do they understand the audience that they're trying to reach? And then do I believe in the story and that if it's a musical, do I believe at the end of the day storytelling and the music? That's for me important, very important. I mean, at the end, that's critical. Um, I try not to. The minute I think of a trend, the trend's going to be over because these things take a long time to produce. It's like, whatever's hot right now, I have no idea if it's going to be hot 18 months from now,
Mhm.
2 years from now. And musicals, by the way, take 5 years to develop. I don't think Hamilton is a trend. That was not a trend, and it can't create a trend. The minute you try to replicate that, it's not going to work. So I just look for great storytelling. I look for great creative talent, and do I think that it'll be commercially viable? Those are my tenets.
Throughout your career, you've been doing a lot of kid and family stuff, and now you're executive producing a show or a film that's going to be on Apple TV, right?
I'm very fortunate to be involved in the project. And it's Sam Rockwell led. He's producer on the movie and also is attached to it. And it's based on the Carlos Ghosn story out of Japan. For those of you who don't know the story, he was arrested by the Japanese government for financial irregularities, under house arrest for a long period of time. I think it was about 14 months. Ultimately escaped Japan in a music box. It was a covert operation that got him out of Japan, but also equally important is the person who got him out, and his name is Michael Taylor. And what happened to Mike Taylor after this, this whole thing happened? Mike and his son ended up in a Japanese prison for 2 years. And Carlos is living in Lebanon, and it's basically that journey, that story of these two gentlemen's lives and how they converged and what happened afterwards.
Wow.
Well, I'm very excited about it.
I look forward to watching that.
Yeah.
Stu, first of all, what's next for you professionally, and then where can we find you?
Professionally, it's hopefully more films, more kid shows. I definitely see a few more Broadway things out of me. Absolutely. By the way, I hate to say it, we talked about Beal's at the beginning, Beal's Lobster Pier. That one of the reasons why I did Beal's is Beal's to me is a production. People are coming here to have a wonderful experience. They are here to create memories. They are here to be entertained, along with having great dining experience. But it's the memories that they're going to take away. That's why this place has survived 93 years. Wow. So I'm just a steward. Yeah, we bought it in the 80th year. It's now 93. So to me, it's continued growth here as a production. I will hopefully continue to advise great companies and work with people that I want to work with, because I'm very fortunate. Hang on, knock on wood. I'm at a chapter of my life where I can work on projects that I love with people that I like. By the way, I have to also throw in and just also watch my daughters grow and have their successful lives as well, because I do have two great daughters. When you think about priorities of life, that's a priority of life for me as well. And where can I be reached? Real simple. My website is stuartsnyder.com. My contact information is there, and anybody can reach out to me.
Stu, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
My pleasure.
I hope to stay in touch. I'm sure we'll have you
anytime
to promote the exciting next projects that you have coming. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been a treat and an honor. I'm so glad you reached out, and it's been a real joy.
Thank you so much. Take care. And
Take care.
We're gonna come visit you at the restaurant. So thank you.
I'll be here.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Care.
Thanks for listening to our show. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us at The Media Machine Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. The Media Machine is hosted by Johanna Salazar. Our producers are Mia Vinciguerra and Johanna Salazar. This episode was edited by Adriana Saravia. This episode features music from Envato Elements. Thanks for listening.